I'm a capitalist at heart. I moved to Kenya 8 years ago and I was doing import-export business. I didn't know anybody when I landed. I was on holiday and I didn't plan to stay. But then I realized there's so much opportunity for entrepreneurship here that I kept extending my ticket. I was posting on social media, mostly so that my friends from back home, I grew up in the UK, could see Africa in a different light. Then I started garnering a following, but it wasn't from me wanting to, it just kind of happened. Then chatting to the brand managers, the owners, and they're saying, oh, I like how you put yourself together. I can see you've got a bit of a profile. Would you like to start making looks? And at this point, I wasn't making money from it. So I started a brand, lost a lot of money, and I realized, okay, I need to learn a bit more about business.
What is one cost of honesty that we've had to pay? Welcome to Beyond the Brand, Moments That Made Us with me, Hannah G. This is the space where we meet amazing people who are building brands of influence, of impact, and of income. And we love to get into their journeys. How did they start? What are they doing? What are they selling? To whom are they selling? And I'm super excited with the guest I have with me today. His name is Eli Mwenda. He is a style icon. He is an influencer. He is a podcaster. And I look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hannah. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Serve you some coffee?
Please, yes.
Good,
yes.
so that you can be relaxed. This is a very relaxed conversation.
Yeah, my first coffee of the day, so thank you.
Lovely. Oh, this is my third.
Third,
I think I was telling Valentine I'm just going to sip on it because, my goodness, too much coffee is not good for you.
You don't want to start shaking.
I know, right?
Yeah, amazing.
But you are welcome. Is that a good introduction for you when I say style icon, when I say podcaster, influencer, or is there another way you would have wished for me to introduce you?
I think it was great. I think it was good. It's been interesting because all of those, roles have come from each other. The only one that was missed was entrepreneur as well. That's been the latest arc that's kind of had all those brands underneath it. Yeah, but it will suffice. Yeah.
Okay. What are you selling in your entrepreneurial journey?
I run an agency.
Okay.
So I sell services to brands, ironically, and to content creators to give them campaigns, work on the creative briefs, do shoot days, and just create, but behind the scenes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I was to ask you what brand you're building, what would what are you trying to do? Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's definitely evolved. I think initially I was building my brand as an individual, and that was Eli, which is where the style, etc., came from. That happened for about 3 years. I quickly realized after a while that I have so much more to offer rather than fashion and grooming. As much as I think look good, feel good is a very good basis. But after you've done that, then what do you do? Which is why then we started a podcast to do another brand, which is more about self-help. So the brand evolved outside of me. So I was building brands that impact people, right? Then from that, it then went to, okay, how can I now help corporates and other people elevate their brand from my creativity and my network and personal brand? And that's how now the entrepreneur part came as well. Yeah.
Okay. So the 3 years, that means, are you now on your third year, fourth year, fifth year building a brand?
Ooh. My personal brand is 8 years.
Is 8 years. And that is where you started with the fashion.
Yeah, that's now my personal platform, like Eli Mwenda as a brand, as an individual. Yeah. The podcast is 7 years old. Yeah, 7 years old, the podcast. And then the agency is 4 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what has informed you from when you're moving from one to the next or adding? What is calling that?
Yeah, I think I'm very competitive, right? And then I felt after a certain while that I would see that there's a gap and I always want to be the first mover. So 7 years ago when it came to podcasting, there weren't many males doing that. And I was having conversations outside of like the cameras. And I thought, okay, how can I be the first mover in this, help and also set the precedence for especially like male podcasting here? Because there was also some negative podcasts too. So I basically said, okay, this is a need that I'm seeing. Can I plug that gap? Then as I evolved, I realized that a lot of people I speak to say, I have a great product, I have an online presence, but I don't know how to translate that. I don't know how to have a strategy for like 12 months. So I said, okay, let me plug in there. So it's finding the need and then being like, do I have the capacity to fill that and create a venture from that? Yeah.
How important is that to find the need and to find the gap?
I think it's really important. I always think you need something you're excited about and something you're moving forward to, because personally, after a certain point, you can kind of plateau. So I think it's really important to see what's the next thing while I establish this, and then create a team to be running that venture and go on to the next one. Because I think you can kind of get stagnated, and you want to keep moving, keep getting excited, and evolving as yourself as well while you're doing so.
Yeah. So right now, in the current, are you doing all of them, or are you doing more of one and less of the other?
I'm doing all at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing all, but I think I just allocate my time and my team so that I can, because I can't do all of it by myself. So I run the agency with my sister. She's the co-director. I run the podcast, which is a production company, with my buddy as well. So 2 directors in each company, then my personal brand as well. So it's not just me doing everything. It's having my co-founders and then a team.
Okay.
But in a week, I touch base with every single one.
Okay, I think I want to talk about all of them. And feel free to have your coffee.
Of course.
So with your personal brand, it's the style icon and influencer.
Yes, I'll just tweak the language.
Okay.
Icon sounds a lot. Yeah, it sounds like pressure. I'd say style curator.
Style curator.
Yeah.
What is that?
It means like I put looks together and then it can inspire somebody else. But I'm not saying you should copy this, but this is how I do it. If it influences you, I've created my style. You now create yours based on what you've seen.
For
and
what? For professionals? For
Yeah, for mostly just the modern gentleman. That's what I try to look at. Yeah. So it starts with grooming, fitness, lifestyle, clothing as well. Yeah. So it's just well-rounded. Back to the look good, feel good.
Okay. And do people copy that? Do they want that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot of guys, they don't know where to go when it comes to, I want to redo my look. Because, as you evolve, maybe you get to 22 or 21 and you're going into your first corporate job. And you're thinking, okay, I've been dressing like this, my weeks look like this, I just typically hang out on the weekends, but I'm going to be in different rooms and I need to evolve and I need to communicate that somehow. So am I in shape? Am I dressing well? Am I well groomed? Because I need that to go to the next stage of my life. So guys, when they're making those transitions, typically will now come to my page, come to the podcast and see how do I elevate through drawing inspiration from clothes or the holistic man. Yeah.
Okay. So in that particular one of the curating of the style and fashion, where does the money come from?
To have this. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you're doing that, is it
Yeah.
an income?
Yeah. So yeah, it is. So I'll give the backstory then as to how I monetize it, because I think it's important. That's a great question, because you can skip steps and say I'm doing this, but then how, right? So I moved to Kenya 8 years ago, and I was doing import-export business, and I didn't know anybody when I landed, and I was on holiday, and I didn't plan to stay. But then I realized there's so much opportunity for entrepreneurship here that I kept extending my ticket. But I didn't have a social circle at that point because I didn't know anybody below 40, because everyone I was dealing with, my clients were much older. So I was posting on social media mostly just as Instagram specifically, mostly so that my friends from back home, I grew up in the UK, could see Africa in a different light. So it was more to say like Africa is more than what you see on, traditional media. So after a while, I think just because of the geotagging and me posting and being in certain places, people would look at me and say, okay, I like that you're dressing slightly different or you carry yourself slightly different. Then I started garnering a following, but it wasn't from me wanting to, it just kind of happened. Then I got invited to 1 or 2 events, 1 or 2 clothing brands, like when Mango opened in Westgate. I think that was my first event. Then chatting to the brand managers, the owners, and they're saying, oh, I like how you put yourself together. I can see you've got a bit of a profile. Would you like to start making looks? And at this point, I wasn't making money from it. I was making money from import-export. Then I remember I'd never been asked to model at all. But then this, do you know Marini Hair?
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes,
right. So
I
that was
do,
my first gig. So she reached out. I was in Junction Mall. I tried the product. I posted. I said, it's really cool. I like what it's done to my hair. They said, would you like to come and model and be an ambassador? Which was very strange because I was like, what do I do in front of the camera? Like, I've been posting for my friends back home. So that's where the first check came from Marini. Then I think once you display that you can be a marketing vehicle, other people say, what you did for that brand, can you do for us? So then my time allocation went now higher when it came to content because there was a monetary return. So yes, I'm doing my import-export, but now I'm like, okay, I have a social circle now, and I also have some money from this side, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm a creative at heart. So over the next 2-3 years, I started transitioning more into putting my time into this. Now, as I'm posting more and doing more brand deals, other brands reach out. Then I create a rate card, I create a media kit, I research what it is to be a creator. And I start now leveraging deals with my platform And then subsequently, the podcast came later. But in terms of making money from styling, it comes from brand partnerships, typically.
I am a creative at heart. Where does that come from? Is it like you were born with it? You
Yeah.
saw it with somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? I think, and up until you're around 16 or 17, you don't really know what you want, in my opinion. And I think when you're in academia and in school, it's kind of cultivating you to say, okay, you need to be a doctor, this, X, Y, Z. And so my path was kind of, I wouldn't say dictated, but influenced by parents from a very loving place, from friends saying, okay, you're decent at science, you should go into healthcare, public health. So I didn't have this creative side of my brain that was being activated, but I liked putting looks together. I liked music. I liked the creative field, but it wasn't a viable thing to my future. So I put it to the side and focused on, this and now business. But then when it came to now putting looks together, even back in school, I would find that from like 15 to 19, even earlier, guys would already copy what I'm wearing when I go into school. And I moved county a few times. And then also growing up in the UK as well, I was one of the only black people in the area. So I was already looked at as different. And so I had influence in that side. But I didn't realize that was creativity, putting fashion together. So then I kind of just translated that and realized, okay, now when it comes to being a brand with clothing, with grooming, there's a way you have to create your content in a creative way so that people consume it. There's a science to videos. Then I found myself immersed in editing, shooting, and I got the creative bug. And I was like, now when I'm watching a film, I'd watch it and I'd say, okay, how can I take that scene, tweak it into a creative way or like a scene for my content? Or I'm just driving and I see a billboard. I'm like, okay, how can I tweak that? And so it kind of gradually got nurtured because I'm a capitalist at heart. So when I started seeing money can come from this.
Some people don't say that. I think you're like the second person I've had say I'm a capitalist at heart.
Really?
Other than my husband.
Oh, really?
A lot of people are capitalists, but they don't want to say it.
Yeah. I think acceptance is the first stage.
Because it's indeed.
Yeah.
It sounds like you don't care about people and social.
Yeah. But I don't think that's the case. I think it just means,
It actually means, what does it mean?
You know what drives you.
You know what drives you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And all of this doesn't happen without capitalism.
Yeah.
There's obviously the negative connotation, but if you lean into the positive and still give back, I think it's good.
But I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. You were going somewhere with that.
Being a capitalist at heart, I realized that, okay, because I know this has an outcome, which is monetary, and I'm enjoying it, how can I make this my everyday? So then that's where the creativity came from. And I started writing briefs. I started talking to other creatives, giving them advice. And then now being in a creative circle, you're made up of the 5 people around you. I was now around creatives. And then I realized this whole time, even back when I was a teenager, I was a creator. I was an influencer without social media. So that's how I realized I'm a creative at heart.
I love it. Yeah. So were you looked at different when you came here? So you grew up in the UK.
Yeah.
Were you born in the UK?
I was born here,
but I
left
here?
when I was under a month.
Okay. So grew up your whole life UK.
Yeah.
You're coming back here when you're 20? 26. Yeah. Were you looked at different when you came here?
100%, yeah. And I think I still am sometimes.
Yeah. When you speak though? Only when you speak?
When I speak, my mindset with certain things, how I conduct business. There's certain things I do that people think are strange, but it's just because it's been ingrained in me since I was sort of growing up.
Who mostly looks at you different?
That's a great question. I'd say it depends on the scenario. It can be good most of the time. My audience sometimes look at me differently, like young guys that are 16, 17. And there's certain attributes that they might like in terms of manners, in terms of I was going to say punctuality, but I got lost today. things like punctuality, things like that. How I address women, my mindset when it comes to gender roles, that sort of thing, is definitely influenced from a Western point of view. So when I have a conversation, after a few minutes, you realize, oh, you think X, I think Y. Yeah. So it's very case by case.
Yeah. Okay. Still on your personal brand and the style curating bit, what do you enjoy most about that bit?
Oh, that's interesting. I think I enjoy color and proportion. So I like playing around with the idea of, okay, if you're this body type or you go into this place and this is the theme or the environment, how do I curate how I look to fit that? So if it's a black tie, if it's casual, how can I have fun with, because I'm a stout guy, slightly shorter, so I'm like, how can I have fun with like my body type? How can I have fun with different tones and colors? Because I think at the end of the day, when you step outside the house, I think how you dress, and I can tell you know this too, how you dress definitely informs the kind of day that you have. And it can literally change your environment, how people address you. So that's one of the things I like putting it together, stepping out and feeling a certain way when I enter a room. Yeah.
It's called presence.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Have you thought of teaching executive presence?
Never thought of that. How would I go about this?
I know.
Yeah.
So I teach executive presence. Right now, we don't have male teachers.
Really?
Like, men teaching executive presence. I teach executive presence.
Yeah.
I was working with Stanchat 2 days ago. Oh, wow. I'm working with other people. Every day I'm working with people on executive presence. So again, just how to put themselves together so that they're able to sell what they're selling at their level.
And this is mostly focused on women or men as well?
No, all. Stanchat was 400 people, men and women.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll have a conversation after. That's really interesting.
Because that's a space probably you want to get into.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
That must feel very rewarding as well when you go into a room and someone says, I've been doing these 3 things wrong, and you change them and see what happens.
100%. Yeah. And sometimes it's just how you do your hair. Sometimes I was telling them to cut this little thing that men have this very long.
I've been trying to find out what that's about. I don't know. I've been looking.
Yeah, I was like, cut those things.
Somebody should tell us what it's about. I don't understand.
I know. So I think it's a very good space that you can get into because, I mean, you dress for the client you're serving. You don't dress for your comfort.
Yes,
and I think those are things you want to stamp into the professionals.
Yeah,
so, 100%. Executive presence. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So wait, last quick question on that. So you're saying that a company would look at their staff and things and say, okay, we need to upskill this because of how we're going to now do business.
I just got a call right now.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Saying
so people are selling, but then they're too casual. Yeah, you're serving affluent clients, but you're too casual.
Yeah.
You see, your client doesn't want you to go dressed in a hoodie and sneakers.
Yeah.
But they can come dressed in a hoodie and sneakers.
Yeah.
So they want you to look like
what you're representing, right?
Like you trust, like they can trust you.
Yeah, that makes sense. The thing is, it dress like how you want to be.
Respect them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. We'll have a conversation for sure.
Let's have a conversation. It's a big market there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
As a capitalist, I'm very happy to.
As a capitalist, let's talk about it. Good stuff. So I like that.
Yeah.
So first one done, your personal brand. So I want to go into the podcast then. That are the thing that you do.
Yeah.
And you said that it was about mental wellness.
Yeah.
You started thinking about mental health.
Yeah.
And then that's what got you into podcasting.
Yeah.
What is it that you saw that wasn't good? What conversations did you see that were not good that you thought, hey, I want to step in and be the person who says better things? Yeah.
Okay. So it was kind of in 2 parts. So on one part, having come here back to the different mindset conversation we had, I was having conversations while I was getting to know people and realizing there's a lot of pain among young men, a lot of confusion and lack of guidance and mentors. So I think when I was having these conversations on the ground, I realized, okay, I'm talking about the outward appearance, but then how do we talk about the inward feeling as well? And I felt like it was a disservice to say, dress like this, but you've not also addressed what's going on inside, right? And so a few guys that I was talking to had the same feeling. We had a meeting, we said, okay, what does it take to reach young men and have these conversations? Because we all had the same burning desire. So that was on one part. And then now when we looked at the social media space in Kenya and generally, there was some thought leaders among men that were doing the opposite. Is it red pill or blue pill content? One of the two. And we didn't like the fact that there wasn't a counter to that. There wasn't a place where men went for positivity, went for challenging conversations and interesting guests. So we sat down, we said, okay, where's the place that men open up the most? We said it's barbershops. So the podcast actually started in a barbershop because the idea is that you tell your barber your problems and what you're thinking about and you leave there lighter. Quick funny story. Sometimes I talk to my barber and he says, some men come to the barbershop, they don't need a haircut, they just need a break. So they'll just come and sit and be like, I just need an hour away from the toddlers. Yeah. So we said, how do we take that real life experience online? So we started the podcast. We all had the same goal. There was 4 of us, but then it dropped down to 2 just because business, etc. So now me and my co-host Oscar Comer, a lawyer and he's in finance as well. He said, how can I bring those skills to the podcast? I said, how do I bring the creativity and the business aspect? And then how do we bring the best guests to be able to speak about these things? And so once we started, it became like a big pillar of purpose I didn't know that I had. And so I'm sure you're familiar in the podcast world, 7 years ago specifically, you had to fund the whole thing yourself. Like there was no branding. And so for 5.5 to 6 years, it's just been self-funding. It's been more of a giving back. And then later on, brands have said, okay, I like what you guys are doing. There's consistency. Now let's put money behind it. And so now it's become more of a venture, but still with that purpose. So that was the gap that we saw online and offline, and we wanted to just fill it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this question is for me because I'm running this podcast.
Yeah.
I think we've been doing it. This is season 3.
Yeah.
And we're self-funding. So what advice can you give me? Until how many episodes?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know what's so interesting? The first advice I'll give is consistency, of course. But from talking to your team, you have a very good model in place. But then the second thing is sometimes you think, I'm going to send out 10 pitch decks. I'm going to talk to all these brand managers. But a lot of the time, what I've realized when they're in the room picking where they want to put their money, it's who's top of mind. So just creating a really strong social media ecosystem so that when there's a brand manager in a deck and there's 6 people, one of the guys making the decision saw your video 2 days ago rather than a month ago and says, I actually like that clip. I think it would look good if our brand is behind that. And the first client is always the hardest one. Once you get one, then you can demonstrate that you're a marketing vehicle. And then typically they'll start saying, okay, we want what that person had. We want that ad slot. So that consistency and being top of mind, because you'll find that you'll send a pitch deck and then it just goes to the bottom of the pile until they have the budget. But you don't know when that's happening a lot of the time, when decisions are being made. So it's important that you're front of mind. Our first client, we sent a pitch deck 3 years ago before they got back to us and said, remember that pitch deck? We actually now have a campaign, which is progressive media, which is about impacting lives. We just unlocked budget and now it aligns with you. Would you be open to it? So yeah, after sending so many decks, one just came, ironically, 2 weeks after we said, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And then it came in the email and we're both having the worst day categorically that year. And then we said, wait, have you checked? And then we're on the phone just laughing, like you can't call it. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah. So consistency is
Thank you.
the ultimate.
Thank you for that advice.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Do you know how many views or subscribers you had before they said come? Does it matter?
Gosh, I don't think it matters. I think, no, I don't think it really matters. I think having back to the ecosystem and distributing your audience across platform, I think is the most important thing, because I was saying to the team earlier, sometimes brands, they've been working in a certain way, which is, above the line marketing, billboards, and then now they're getting used to social media, which is influencers. Then while they've just got used to that, we're like, okay, now add podcasters. So they're like, okay, we don't know how to put our money. So if you can go to a brand and say, okay, yes, we have long form content, but you can pay for 3 clips the same way you would for influence to go on our social media, then it's easier for them to unlock the budget. So spreading the audience, which is why the ultimate number doesn't matter as much. It's more like each platform, because the people on TikTok are different to people on Instagram and YouTube Shorts. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Still on the podcast.
Yeah.
So 2 people have left. So it's just the 2 of you.
Yeah.
How's that going, working with a partner on a podcast?
Interesting. So I always got the advice, never go into business with friends. And the weird thing about this business when we formed it, because there was 1 week where we said, okay, guys, we've been pitching. This is before we go into the second season. We've been pitching. Everyone needs to chip in for production. Everyone needs to attend meetings. We have these 3 meetings. Are you coming? Then no response. We said, okay. Now, me and the other guy were the ones that were really active on the chat and talking. So we're talking to ourselves. We said, why are we talking in the group chat? Let's just, go here. So once we sat down, we realized our friendship came from forming the business rather than the other way around. So the advice of don't go into business with friends was kind of redundant. So what we realized is that, yes, we're doing this, but let's have a very clear conversation as to what's the value you bring, how we divide in the company, what are our roles going to be. And then we could sit and say, these are our values, this is how we're going to divvy up the company, and then go into it that way. But it really started with a very clear and hard conversation, because otherwise you have them when there's so much at stake already. So that worked. And then we really built on our friendship at the same time, because if you're talking to somebody every week on a podcast, you have hosts, you have budgets to allocate to production, you need to have a really good relationship. So what happened is that after a while, our relationship became even above the business. And now we're like best friends. So that's kind of how it formed. We're still very cool with the other guys. They're still our boys. But I just think we're at different points in our life when it came to the podcast. And the nature of the podcast being honest and elevating conversations meant that we were having them on set, but to be able to have them on set, you have to have them offset as well, right?
You must, yeah.
Yes.
So it must align.
100%. Yeah. So now we can have very blunt conversations and talk on the phone about things that a lot of guys obviously don't do, which is why the podcast is there.
Yeah. Is there one particular conversation you remember having and a member of the audience maybe reached out because it really was touching for them?
I don't know the exact, I have the answer, but it's slightly different. So rather than knowing the exact episode or moment, I've had a few interactions where I've had guys come up to me and just talk about the podcast in general. I don't know what sentence, what was said, but not to be morbid, I've had one quite senior guy come up to us. And ironically, we were trying to leverage a deal. He worked at a pretty large company and we were trying to leverage a deal and he happened to be friends with someone we're hosting. So because he knew that his colleague was coming on the podcast, he was like, can I come just to meet the guys? So as we're getting ready, like you are on set, he pulls us to the side and he says, guys, like the reason I'm here is because I've been watching a podcast and I don't really have a circle. And I got so lonely that I didn't want to be here anymore. But just knowing that there's other guys that are feeling what I feel, that go through the same struggles, made me feel seen and actually made me stop what I wanted to do because I'd thought about some of the things that you guys said on set. So I don't know what it was we said. He wasn't specific. But that's probably the most impactful one. And I think that's happened no more than 3 times, within 2 to 3 times, where somebody said, yeah, not always to that extreme, but, you know. I've had other guys as well that there was a couple in Social House. And this was really monumental. So we go to Social House to plan the season. So me and Oscar sit down. We have a specific seats. We say, okay, what do we want this season? So we're having our normal meeting. And there's a guy in the corner that's kind of looking at us. You know, when someone stares, you don't know why they're looking. Then the waitress comes over and he says, this guy wants to take care of your bill. So we say, okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. Then we say thank you. And then like, do you want to come over and say hi? So we start talking to him. He says is it Uganda or Rwanda? One of the two. But he's in town and he can't believe that he bumped into us because he watches from over there. And we say, it's amazing to meet you. Then as we're sat down, now his wife comes to join him because she was, I don't know where she was. She comes with the buggy. And then as we're leaving near the door, the wife and now this young man said, we're so glad that this podcast exists so that our son, when he grows up, has somewhere we can direct him as well. So those kind of moments is why if we make money or don't make money, it's one of the most beautiful things that we get to do. Yeah.
Wow. What does that make you want to do?
More. Because when you start to scratch an itch, you realize how deep it can go. And some of the DMs and emails we get, we realize that there needs to be something bigger than just a podcast. There needs to be a space, if it's physical or moving, where guys can go, because you don't know the need until you start talking about it. So it's very rewarding, but back to like my general nature that I mentioned in the beginning, it's like, okay, how do we take this to the next level? How do we impact more people? So those are the kind of conversations I was having. My 3rd meeting of the day today was about that. Like, how do we get resources to fund creators and mental health and have some sort of institution where guys can go, feel safe, and no pressure. So that's kind of where my head is. First time I said it on camera, but yeah, that's where my head is in terms of how do we take Man Talk to the next level. That's
beautiful.
Yeah.
I still want to go back to that conversation with the person who paid your bill, and then they said, I love that this exists because my son, right? Yeah. So I have a son and I have daughters as well. Do you think that my son will listen to my advice more, or will he listen to the dad more? Who do you think should be having more conversations with my son?
I think both. Because I think if I look at myself when I was a young man, there's certain things that I get from a dad and certain things I get from my mum, and they're very different. I think when it comes to, I'll speak personally, and maybe your son might have the same nature as me, when it comes to more emotional feelings stuck, don't need solutions. I just need an ear. I need to vent and a soft place to land. That's always my mum. If I'm upset, I need to understand women, relationship, that sort of thing. She's there and she can just listen and just say, I'm so sorry, pole. And that's sometimes all you need. But I feel like when I need a solution, especially when it comes to work. I can call my dad and get the harsh truth, which is, I remember once I was traveling and I was neglecting my work. And so, I hadn't spoken to him for like 2 weeks. I pick up the phone, hey dad, and it's just like, we need to talk. So I go to the side and there's like reality checks where it's like, okay, it's been this much time, you're spending this much money, you have these responsibilities, you can't run a business, you're at the age where you can't be doing recreational things at that level anymore, you're not 18. So you need to figure out how you're going to come back home. So change my stuff, I fly back home. So they're there for different reasons, more iron fist, and then with the mother, more of a nurturing. Yeah, because I think if you go to them for different things, you go to your mom, tell me what to do, she doesn't really want to say as much as your dad can put it. That's been my experience, so yeah.
I like that. Okay, that's good. I'm asking a lot of things for my own
Exactly.
consumption over here.
Exactly.
Which I really like. Okay, thank you for sharing that. I want to go to this other basket of you being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And the business you said is what? I want to go back there again. That business of you as an entrepreneur, what is it you're trying to create there?
Okay.
Yeah.
So for context, I think before I started the agency, I realized halfway through uni, I was studying public health. I realized I really like business, but I have to finish this degree and then give the certificate to my mum, right? So that's literally what happened. So the first business I did was hats, like clothing, hats. And in 2016, it was all about streetwear. So I started a brand, lost a lot of money, and I realized, okay, I need to learn a bit more about business. So I shadowed my father for a time. He was doing some ventures around Europe, and then I got to like learn the ropes. So by the time I came to Kenya and I was doing import-export, I had a bit something under my belt in terms of the principles. And I realized I like business, but I don't like it when I'm not creating. So when I sat down, I said, okay, I'm doing these things as a brand, but that's still that thing of business. Because yes, a personal brand is a business too, but after a certain point, I don't want to be front facing. So how do I establish something that can live after me or not have me in front of camera? So after doing different iterations, it kind of came naturally, because back to the clothes thing, I needed to get rid of some of my stuff. So I was thinking, what do people do? Car boot sales, markets. How do I get rid of these clothes? So I said, okay, let me host a quick pop-up event at a location. I leverage with the location. I say, I'll bring clients to your location. And then I get to sell my clothes. They make money. And I get like 10 influencers. So now we guaranteed people. So I put a poster out. And I contacted the people I know by then and say, do you want to do this? They say, oh my God, same. I need to get rid of clothes. So we start posting about it. I set up a page. It was called the Insta Market at the time. So I set up a page, and then quickly I filled out the 10 people that needed to come within like, I think a day or two. And I forgot to say, I was hosting this with my sister, who's also my director. There's a reason. So yeah, we both were like, okay, cool. We want to sell our clothes, but it was in a month's time, the event. But all these influencers had signed up, and we said, okay, now we're at capacity. And now our inbox started being, I've seen these influencers posting, saying they're going somewhere for me as an audience member to come. But I also have a business as an audience member. Can I bring my business? And you don't say no to money. So I'm like, sure, at this price. They're like, okay, cool, let me send. I'm like, okay. So now I have to change venue, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There was meant to be 10 people. It turned out to be 120 vendors. So like 10x what I wanted. And so we didn't even get a chance to like sell our clothes. They stayed in the car because I'm making sure everyone's okay. Random people selling jewelry. And so we end up having like the press come, BBC, all these people. And I'm like, what's going on? This is not the plan, but you lean in, right? So I'm like, okay, what are the principles that I thought? And I remember my dad always said, like, say yes and you'll figure it out later. So all these small businesses, when I go around, how's the event going? Like, yeah, when's the next one? And I'm like, okay, we'll communicate that. And I sit back in the car like, okay, we need to make another event. So really successful the first time. Then we put out another one, the page grows, everyone's reposting. Then we're like, now I have to get entertainment, DJs, good venues. So it just escalates. And so we're just solving problems and solutions as we go, right? So me and my sister were like, okay, we're good at creating marketing to get people to come to an event. And we're good at hosting events. So we keep doing it. But then also I felt after 3 years that I kind of outgrew that, because I don't want to be on the ground doing events thing. I think it also reached a cap. We started partnering with like festivals and things like that, which was great. But I think the love for it on my end kind of died down a bit. And also at one of the events, our page got hacked. We had to like reset, and we said, okay, I don't want to have to start from scratch again. So I said, okay, what have we learned? We've learned that when it comes to a business that wants to sell to clients, we're good at using social media to get people to come to an event. So if it's not an event, how do we just get them to come to the customers online? So we started, so I think our first big client was LC Waikiki. So we got like a 12-month contract with them. We were doing all their strategy for Africa because they used to have like 5 pages. So we said, okay, we can condense those pages, have 1 page, LC Africa, which is now what's running. And how do we set up the page for consistency? So they were like, this is amazing. We grew the page, successful campaigns. And then we said, okay, this is really good. If a client like that can work with us, what other clients can we do? So we started changing the events company to now a marketing agency where we don't have to be on the ground. It's just strategy. We build a team and we make your content. We give you strategy as well. We can sell that as an item too, or we can just advise and consult. So that's what's been running and how I scratched that itch when it came to building the entrepreneur side. And obviously the production company for Man Talk is another business, but I'm still front facing. The plan is eventually to also be putting other people in front of camera and being behind like your team. So yeah, that's how it happened.
I just like how you're doing this.
Yeah.
And the reason is for you, when you're adding another thing to your business, it's not you saying, hey, I need to open another branch. I need to start another business. And it's a need. It's coming from the need of the people. My goodness.
It's
That's like a whole business masterclass. Because, I mean, people will start this business over here and then they say, oh my goodness, I need to open a branch in Nyeri. I need to open a branch in Mombasa. And yet the audience hasn't asked for it.
So you've got supply and demand backwards at that point, right?
So I just like how you're going.
Well, thank you.
Because if there's a need, then let's fill the need. And as we go, there's going to be a need that's filled. So I really like that.
Thank you.
But you studied public health.
Yes.
Not business at all.
Zero.
That's crazy.
I know. So it was
where did the business sort of acumen come from?
So I went, I was shadowing my father, like I said, in Europe for a while. And so he won't mind me saying this. He was basically consulting for a big car company. And so one of their projects, when Brexit happened?
Yes.
So it was around that time. And so all these companies were like, okay, we need somewhere in Central Europe to be able to do distribution. So as a consultant, he was like, I speak a few languages. I can do this for you. So the company says, okay, it's commissioned, go and do it. And I just finished graduating and I was saying how I really want to do business. He said, okay, come and shadow me. So I learned how to go into a room, talk to people, leverage, have integrity, which was like always the number one thing. And always think on your feet, which I think is one of the biggest things. So coming here, I just basically implemented those principles and lessons to be able to like now navigate. And then also at that time when I realized there's a certain fire that got lit in my belly, then I just did a big dive into self-development, reading, virtual mentors, and upskilling myself so that I can now have something, to say when I'm in a room.
Impressive. How is it working with your sister?
Oh, it's amazing. I think she is 5 years younger than me.
Okay.
And so what happens now is I think I'm creative, but she's like creative times 5 what I am. So within the company, she's more on the creative side. I'm more on the client business operations side. And so when we come together, it's so natural. We're best friends as well. So she's currently in Nairobi at the moment. She's staying at my place while she figures out if she wants to transition here. But being in the same environment, having the same principles, upbringing, integrity, work ethic, it's seamless. It's really, really seamless. It's one of the best decisions we've ever done. Yeah.
Good stuff. And do you have other team members as well?
Yeah. So we, there's a weird time for this question. So we had built a whole team. And then, I said, I'm always thinking, what's the next thing? So at the end of last year, we did like a massive restructure. So we're building the whole, even some of the people you're communicating with, building out a whole new team because, yes, I've explained what I've been doing, but already this year I want to do something else. So yeah, there has been a team, but I'm pivoting it to change the whole business model.
To fit the thing that you're doing.
The new thing that I want to do.
Okay.
Which is in the same space, but yeah.
Okay. 3 to 5 years, what do you see in the horizon?
I see creators becoming businesses outside of working for brands in the creator space. So having more B2C rather than B2B interactions. So people building shoe brands, building more clothing brands, building more merch locations. And let's say you're a photographer, rather than just being a photographer that's a brand, it's like I have 4 different studios that offer different things. If I'm a fashion influencer, if I'm a skincare influencer, I have like 3 skincare things under me. and people are going to trust the creator more than a big corporation because they know what the creator stands for, but you don't know the person that owns the other skincare brand. So that's where I kind of see the creator space going with people that are in my pool.
In your space.
Yeah.
How important do you think choosing brands to work with is? Especially because you're going to be working with a lot of influencers and you are one.
Yeah.
Should they be picky?
So I want to make sure I come from a place of practicality.
Yeah.
Because you can get to a place where you can become picky. And I'm 7 years in, so luckily I've kind of got there. But when you're starting out, there's a time where you have to demonstrate, I think it's the third time I've said that, demonstrate that you're a marketing vehicle. Because sometimes people don't know what they want until they see it. So if I sell this cup really, really well, then a sugar brand wants to work with me. But before I can show that I can sell the cup, I need to be talking about cups for a while. So once I've sold so many things, then all these brands are coming, then I can pick who I want. But it really starts with building that credibility before you can start saying to the brand, I don't want to work with you. You need to show that I'm someone worth working with before you get picky. So after a few years, I think set your principles, the kind of content pillars you want to be fulfilling and the kind of dream audience member and consumer that you want to be selling your brand to. Then you can work in reverse and say, okay, does this brand that now wants to work with me fulfill the need of my customer or my audience as well? Yeah.
Are there brands you have said no to?
Yeah, countless.
Because of what?
Yeah. The first thing as a personal brand is I don't work with alcohol brands. With the podcast, we work under the progressive media for Johnny Walker, but it's not product-based. It's more CSR, right? So we don't promote the product, we promote the CSR. Then when it comes to me as a brand, as an individual, I've never touched an alcohol brand. That's because of faith, and it's also just because of family things and just principles that were done, implemented in my life for a long time. Other brands, I think if I do a deep dive into them and there's some gray areas and I can see foresight that this brand in 3 years is not going to look good, I don't want to be associated with them. Also, when it comes to dealing with the personnel, let's say it's a brand owner, and you can just tell someone's demeanor and someone's principles when you're talking. The first thing I learned, like I said, was integrity. And if the person that I'm working with on a smaller brand doesn't have that, I also don't want to work with them. I've had an instance where there was a brand owner, very successful, but now when I brought it to my team, they were like, oh, I know this person. And now on a personal level, they treated them in a certain way. And I'm like, I now don't want to promote someone's business if you treated my team member outside of work like that, because people don't change. They'll treat you the same way on a business level.
How important is that though?
Very, very. Because I think the price of peace of mind, you can't put a number on it. And so if I wake up in the morning, I don't want to be putting my camera up and saying, hey guys, this is amazing, when I don't really feel it and I don't like the person that's giving me the money to promote it. Yeah. Really
Makes
important.
sense. How important is faith in building a brand for you?
Do you mean on a religious level or a personal level?
Let's hear it. Because you said because of my faith.
Yeah.
How important is that? Yeah.
I think for longevity, it's really important to not put and again, I know on a practical level it's tough sometimes. It's really important to put your values first because you will attract the right kind of money. Because, not to get too preachy, but not all money is good money, in my opinion. So I think it's really important to stick to that. And I think if you manage to stick to that for a long period of time and other people take different routes, there'll be very few of you that have stuck to your guns. And then you can even make way more money in a smaller field rather than taking every opportunity. Because I feel like sometimes you can take opportunities with brands and then you're associated with something negative and it's, again, not aligned to your faith. And then now you can't really come back from that. So I think it's really important to stick to what you truly believe, because I think you can't really fool people online for a long period of time. People will be able to see through the cracks. And if you're trying to promote something, they'll see where there's not a spark, or if it's a bad product, they'll see that you're not really behind it. So if you put your integrity and faith first, I also believe that God will bless the work that you're doing. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Do you share that part on social media? Do you talk about faith? Do you talk about God? Where do you draw the line?
That's a great question. As of last year, I think for the first time, so when I'm doing a Q&A, very casual, I say, do you have a faith? Yes, I'm a Christian. I'll always say that, but I don't do a deep dive because those are some of my parameters I put in place, which was my love life. That was the plan, to not put it online. My family, not to put it online, unless it's my sister who's also on social media, and my faith and politics. Those were things that I kind of kept out. But you kind of evolve. And I realized that as much as we're, in a sense, virtual signaling with our podcast, the virtues and the principles come from the faith that I grew up in. So I'm leaving a gap. I'm not, talking about it. And I know you've had Sharon Mwangi here. We recently did an episode with her and Dora. And for the first time, we were talking about faith publicly. And I just put my guard down and said, I'm okay to talk about it. And it was very relieving, because I think I've been holding this part because I thought it was precious, but I'm saying if I'm sharing other things, why not share where that kind of comes from? But at the same time, I'm also on my own journey when it comes to faith. So I think there was a feeling that I'm not there yet to be able to talk about it. But I think that's a backwards mentality. I think you talk about where you're at. And so as soon as I did that and I was just honest about it, I realized there was so many other people that were in the exact same place. I think the thing I said on the podcast was, I feel that you can lean on God sometimes when things are bad. To put it very concise, you can lean on it when times are bad, but then when things are good, you start to forget the person that helped you, and you're busy enjoying the blessings and you forget where they came from. And I just kind of said it in a very candid, more long form way. And the comments and the feedback was, I feel the same thing. I'm glad somebody said it. So the same way I wanted to help men, I think by just sharing where I'm at, nowhere near perfect on a spiritual level or faith level, it can help somebody. So I intend to do more of it. I'm not going to be a preacher, but I intend to do more of it this year for sure.
Just do it.
Yeah, why not? Why not? It can help someone.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So some people think when you're not vulnerable and sharing things about what's happening, like your family, your love life, then you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I think I never let somebody inform how I want to move and create, because I think if I pander to what I think somebody wants and not what I really want to do, then I'm being dragged. I'm not using my own trajectory, right? So yes, someone can think you're holding back, you're not authentic, but if I can sleep at night and know that I've given what I want to do and I genuinely am authentic, and there are like 10 people in my real life know I am, it doesn't really matter. And I think I've been able to experience that. I got to experience that last year, where outside opinions, there's like a callous now that there's not anything that can be said in terms of my integrity or me as a person that's outside of how I actually operate that can affect me. So if someone thinks that by not sharing faith or certain parts, I'm not a well-rounded individual, I'm not authentic, then it also means they've not consumed you for a long enough time to be able to really understand you. Yeah, so I focus on real life first. Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean you can say no if somebody asked you, hey, tell me about your love life? Are you comfortable to say, 100%. I don't want to share that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I have in the past, or I just smile and stay silent, and then they kind of keep it pushing.
Just continue with the conversation.
Yeah. But in real life,
yeah.
Always, if it's like people I care about and there's like a lesson, I talk about it so freely with my circle. But in terms of online, I don't do that. And I think the only time that my personal romantic side was put out there was without my consent anyway. So I think now I'm just setting those kind of boundaries where anything that goes out is based on what I want as well, without compromising.
So if you were to put your personal brand, the podcasting, and you being an entrepreneur together, and then I asked, what brand is this? Or I said, hey, Eli, who are you helping? How are you helping them? What would you say?
Who I'm helping, I always have the person in mind. And I know I help other people outside of that, but the person in mind is a late teen, early 20s young man that needs some sort of guidance virtually on how to operate and how to live an authentic life and be that kind of modern gentleman, and try to expand their mind through how I carry myself, the conversations I have, and even talking about business and things like that, to shine light on what you can do. So that's the person I always talk about. And even on our pod as well, if we have a guest, one of the last things I always ask them is like, okay, to like a 16-year-old boy, what would you say about that topic? Because I always want them to have some sort of guiding light, because a lot of guys are either fatherless with no role models. And I mean, I'm only 33. I'm not like at that level yet, but I might be 5 years ahead, and so I might be able to help you in your next 5 years. So that's the person I'm trying to help. How I'm helping them is just by doing my very best consistently and showing what I'm comfortable with when I'm comfortable to show it. And that's down to even just decorating your house, just knowing that you can live in a nice space as a man. You can buy flowers for yourself as a man. You can learn to cook as a man. Like it's okay. Like it's never that serious. So just doing it through my actions, and hopefully by watching it, it does impact them somehow. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to get married someday and have children?
I can't wait. I wish I was married with kids by now. I thought like mid-20s, I'd have like a whole little family, but it wasn't God's plan. But 100%. Yeah. 100%. Pray for me.
And then God blesses you with a son. What are you going to teach your son?
I think you can speak a lot, but what I realized is I learned more from my father through just watching. So I'd want to just let him in on everything and teach him through just my actions, through how I speak to his mother, how I treat women and men and the community. And that's how I want to teach him. There'll be basic principles, of course, like conversations that me and the mother agree to have with him. But on a general level, I think it would just be through not holding anything back and let him just see how I navigate my life and figure out the life he wants to with those principles as well. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
You know, we're about to end this conversation. We've been talking for almost an hour.
Oh my gosh. Time flies. Time flies. Yeah.
But I think there's a question I still want to ask because you lived in the UK, you got that experience and you came here as well. And it looks like it has worked well for you. So for somebody who wants to come back, somebody who wants to come back to the motherland and do work here, start a business, what would you tell them? And I'm thinking, address them from there.
Okay.
Like, is it such a bad place to be?
Yeah.
This Kenya of ours, is it that bad?
No, I think categorically Africa as a continent is the best continent you can be, especially in 2026, in terms of where we're going. I think there's cycles in life and globally, and I think it's turned to us. So I think if you want to build something, the best thing you can do is to come home. But I'd say come home with a plan, because some of the mistakes I made is because there wasn't a solid plan and I was figuring it out as well. I think as well, patience and being open to adapting to your environment is one of the biggest principles if you do want to move back home. And I'd say also the biggest thing is to keep your circle as small as possible, your inner circle as small as possible when you move. But if you do those things, hopefully you'll have a fantastic experience. But I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And we love you to be here, so stay here.
Of course, I'm not going anywhere.
You like it,
My kids will be here, my family, everything's going to be here.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So beyond the brand, I am?
I'm a son of God. I'm a son to my family. I'm a brother, a friend, and just a guy trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. Good. Are you enjoying this conversation? Have
amazing.
you enjoyed this conversation?
I have, yes. You've been a fantastic host.
What have you enjoyed most about this conversation?
The fact that I forgot I'm being recorded. That's always a good that's always a good sign, yeah. And I like that you really tracked it nicely. Like we went through all the aspects that I mentioned in the first few minutes. So I'm glad I got to express myself. It felt very safe. And the questions had value behind them. And it wasn't based on gossip, hearsay. It was more based on tangible things people can go away and impact their life in a positive way. Right. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so 3 questions here. Yeah. It's a quick fire, but you don't have to think on that. You can take your time.
Okay.
You can just take your time.
I can. Okay.
Oh yeah, don't shoot. Just take your time.
Okay.
And we call them the 3 sips of truth around here. So what is that one belief you had to let go of?
People pleasing. That I have to appease everybody and make everyone feel, I don't want to say comfortable. I'll rephrase it. I think the one thing I let go of is just people pleasing in general. Yeah.
Okay. What is one cost of honesty that we've had to pay?
Backstabbing, because sometimes the truth can be used as a weapon. And that's in my opinion, one of the most painful things that can happen when you entrust somebody with, especially a vulnerable truth, and that's used, or vulnerable information to better them, and it's used to now at your detriment. Yeah.
Makes sense. One sentence for men who are finding their voice.
I'd say don't be scared to speak and say the wrong thing, as long as you're open to learn what the right thing was.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Beyond the Brand, Moments That Made Us with me, Hannah G. As always, thank you for watching. We love you. We do this because you are there, right? Thank you. For now, it's a bye-bye.